In the vast expanse of internet folklore, few concepts have captured the collective imagination quite like the Backrooms. What began as a simple creepypasta post on a Fourshan thread in 2019 has evolved into one of the most expansive and intricate collaborative horror universes ever created. The Backrooms represent something primal in human psychology: the fear of being lost, the unease of familiar yet wrong spaces, and the terror of infinite emptiness. The original post was deceptively simple. An anonymous user shared a grainy photograph of a yellow-tinted office space with old, moist carpet, fluorescent lights, and wallpaper that seemed to stretch endlessly. The accompanying text described a place you could no-clip out of reality into, a glitch in the fabric of existence itself. This single image and brief description would spawn thousands of stories, hundreds of levels, countless entities, and an entire mythology that continues to grow and evolve to this day. To understand the Backrooms is to understand liminal spaces, those transitional areas that exist between destinations: hallways, stairwells, empty parking garages, hotel corridors at 3 a.m. These spaces feel wrong when empty because our brains expect them to be populated, to be in use. The Backrooms takes this concept and amplifies it to cosmic horror proportions, creating an infinite maze of such spaces where the normal rules of reality no longer apply. The original Backrooms post appeared on May 12, 2019 on Fourshan's /x/paranormal board. A user had created a thread asking people to post disquieting images that just feel off. Among the responses was the now iconic image of Level 0, accompanied by the following description: "If you're not careful and you no-clip out of reality in the wrong areas, you'll end up in the Backrooms, where it's nothing but the smell of old moist carpet, the madness of mono yellow, the endless background noise of fluorescent lights at maximum hum buzz, and approximately 600 million square miles of randomly segmented empty rooms to be trapped in. God save you if you hear something wandering around nearby, because it sure as hell has heard you." This description contains several elements that would become foundational to Backrooms lore. The concept of no-clipping, a term borrowed from video game glitches where players pass through solid objects, provided a mechanism for entry. The sensory details, the smell, the color, the sound, made the space feel tangible and real. The mention of something wandering nearby introduced the concept of entities, and the sheer scale, 600 million square miles, established the hopeless vastness of this place. The term no-clip itself is particularly significant. In video games, no-clipping is when the collision detection fails and a player character passes through what should be solid geometry. This gaming reference immediately framed the Backrooms as a glitch in reality itself, as if our universe were a simulation with bugs that could be accidentally triggered. This metaphor resonated deeply with a generation raised on video games and increasingly comfortable with digital metaphors for existence. Level 0, often called the lobby or tutorial level, is the entry point for most people who find themselves in the Backrooms. It is the archetypal Backrooms experience, the image that started it all. Understanding Level 0 is essential to understanding the entire Backrooms mythology, as it establishes the rules, atmosphere, and existential dread that permeate every level. Level 0 consists of a seemingly infinite maze of randomly generated office rooms and hallways. The walls are covered in mono-yellow wallpaper, stained with age and moisture. The floors are carpeted in a damp, musty carpet that squelches slightly underfoot. The ceiling is lined with fluorescent lights, many of which flicker or buzz with that distinctive electrical hum that seems to bore into your skull after hours of exposure. There are no windows. There are no external doors. There is no indication of where you are or how to escape. The architecture of Level 0 follows no logical pattern. Hallways lead to rooms that lead to more hallways. Sometimes you'll find yourself in a large open space. Other times, you'll be squeezing through narrow corridors. The layout seems to shift when you're not looking, though whether this is actual spatial distortion or simply the disorienting effect of identical rooms is unclear. Survivors report walking for hours, even days, without finding an exit, without finding anything different, without finding anyone else. The sensory experience of level 0 is deliberately overwhelming in its monotony. The yellow of the walls is not a pleasant, sunny yellow. It's a sickly, aged yellow, the color of old paper or nicotine-stained walls. The smell is described as musty, like old carpet that's been slightly damp for years, with undertones of mildew and something else, something organic and wrong. The sound is perhaps the worst part. The constant electrical hum of the fluorescent lights, occasionally punctuated by a flicker or a buzz, but never true silence. This auditory assault makes it difficult to hear anything else, which becomes terrifying when you remember that something might be wandering nearby. The psychological effects of level 0 are profound. The endless sameness creates a form of sensory deprivation despite the constant stimulation. Without landmarks or variation, it becomes impossible to know if you're making progress or walking in circles. Time becomes meaningless. There's no day or night, no way to track hours except by your own exhaustion. The isolation is crushing. The knowledge that you could walk forever and never find another human being, never find an exit, never escape this yellow purgatory, can break even the strongest minds. Survival in level 0 requires maintaining your sanity as much as finding physical sustenance. The level is relatively safe compared to deeper levels. There are few entities here, and those that exist are generally avoidable. The real danger is psychological collapse, giving up, sitting down in one of those endless rooms, and simply waiting to die of thirst or starvation. Survivors recommend keeping moving, talking to yourself to maintain a sense of identity, and looking for any variation in the environment that might indicate an exit or a passage to another level. Some areas of level 0 are more dangerous than others. Dark rooms, areas where the lights have failed, should be avoided, as entities are more common in darkness. Dead ends can be psychologically devastating, forcing you to backtrack through identical corridors with no assurance you're going the right way. And there are rumors of special rooms, the red rooms with different colored walls, or rooms with furniture, or rooms with windows that show impossible vistas. That might be exits, or might be traps. Finding supplies in level 0 is possible, but unreliable. Occasionally, you might find a vending machine, though whether it will work is another question. Some explorers report finding bottles of water or snacks left behind by previous victims. There are even tales of supply caches left by organized groups of survivors, though whether these are real or hallucinations brought on by dehydration is debatable. The exit from level 0 is as random as the entrance. Most commonly, people report finding a door that's different from the others, perhaps a different color, or with a handle instead of being handleless, or one that feels somehow significant. Opening this door might lead to level 1, or to one of the many other levels accessible from level 0. Some people report no clipping through the floor or ceiling, suddenly finding themselves in an entirely different environment. Others speak of walking through a wall that should have been solid. The Backrooms, it seems, decides when you're ready to move on, or when it's ready to move you. The original post described only what we now know as level 0, but the collaborative nature of internet horror meant that expansion was inevitable. Within weeks of the original post, users on various platforms, 4chan, Reddit, wikis, and forums, began adding to the mythology. The concept of multiple levels emerged organically, with different creators imagining what might lie beyond that first yellow maze. The early expansions maintained the core aesthetic and philosophy of the original. Level 1, the habitable zone, was described as a massive parking garage or warehouse space, still liminal and unsettling but more survivable than level 0. Level 2, pipe dreams, introduced industrial elements, concrete tunnels, steam pipes, and mechanical noises. Each new level added variety while maintaining the fundamental wrongness that made the Backrooms compelling. As the mythology grew, certain patterns emerged. Levels were generally numbered, though the numbering system became increasingly complex as the lore expanded. Some levels were considered safe, relatively free of entities, and with accessible resources. Others were classified as dangerous, or even deadly. The concept of sublevels emerged, variations or pockets within main levels. And eventually, the lore expanded to include negative levels, secret levels, and levels that could only be accessed under specific conditions. The Backrooms Wiki became the primary repository for this expanding lore. Multiple wiki sites emerged, each with slightly different canons and approaches. The most popular, the Backrooms Wiki on fandom, and later the Wiki.dot version, established classification systems for levels, entities, and objects. They created a pseudoscientific documentation style, with entries written as if by researchers or survivors cataloging their findings. This SCP Foundation-inspired approach gave the Backrooms a sense of legitimacy and depth. The classification system that emerged divided levels into several categories. Class 0 levels were safe, minimal entity count, secure resources, and friendly survivor communities. Class 1 levels were habitable but required caution. Class 2 levels were dangerous, with common entity encounters and scarce resources. Class 3 levels were extremely dangerous, with hostile entities and environmental hazards. Class 4 levels were nearly impossible to survive, with extreme entity density or reality-breaking properties. And Class 5 levels were considered certain death, places where survival was measured in seconds, not hours. This expansion phase also saw the introduction of more complex concepts. The idea of wanderers, people trapped in the backrooms trying to survive, became central to the lore. Organizations emerged, groups of survivors who had banded together and established bases in safer levels. The MEG, Major Explorer Group, became the most prominent, a quasi-scientific organization dedicated to mapping the backrooms and helping survivors. Other groups included the BNTG, Backrooms Non-Aligned Trade Group, focused on commerce and resource distribution, and various smaller factions with their own agendas. The concept of almond water entered the mythology during this period. This mysterious liquid, found in bottles throughout various levels, became the signature survival resource of the backrooms. Drinking almond water was said to provide hydration, nutrition, and even some protection against the reality warping effects of deeper levels. Its origin was never explained, adding to the mystery. Was it left by previous victims? Produced by the backrooms itself? A remnant of whatever reality existed before this place became what it is? The ambiguity was part of its appeal. As more creators contributed, the tone of the backrooms began to shift. The original post had been pure horror, isolation, madness, and death. But as the mythology expanded, elements of hope emerged. Survivor communities, safe havens, even the possibility of escape. This created a tension in the lore between those who wanted to maintain the original's hopeless horror and those who wanted to explore the possibilities of survival and adaptation. Different wikis and communities leaned different directions, creating multiple canons that sometimes contradicted each other. The visual aesthetic also evolved during this expansion. While Level 0's yellow rooms remained iconic, new levels introduced different liminal spaces: abandoned malls, endless hotels, infinite libraries, underground tunnels, suburban neighborhoods frozen in eternal twilight. Each new level drew on different sources of liminal unease, exploring the full range of spaces that feel wrong when empty or endless. The common thread was always that sense of wrongness, of spaces that should be temporary or populated existing in impossible configurations. No horror mythology is complete without its monsters, and the Backrooms is no exception. The entities of the Backrooms are as varied and strange as the levels themselves, ranging from barely glimpsed shadows to reality-warping abominations. Understanding these creatures is essential to understanding the dangers of the Backrooms and the strategies survivors use to avoid them. The original post mentioned something wandering around nearby, but didn't specify what. This ambiguity allowed the community to fill in the gaps with their own nightmares. The first entities to be widely accepted into the canon were relatively simple: humanoid figures, strange sounds, things that chased you through the yellow halls. But as the lore expanded, the entities became more complex, more varied, and often more terrifying. The Smilers are perhaps the most iconic Backrooms entities. These creatures appear as floating smiles in the darkness. White, two wide grins with eyes above them, hovering in dark corners or unlit rooms. They don't move when you're looking at them, but the moment you look away or blink, they're closer. The Smilers are found primarily in dark areas of various levels, and their behavior is simple but terrifying. They watch, they follow, and eventually they attack. Survivors recommend avoiding dark areas entirely, as once a Smiler has noticed you, escape is difficult. Hounds are another common entity, particularly in Level 0 and Level 1. These creatures resemble dogs or wolves, but are wrong in subtle ways. Too many joints in their legs, heads that turn at impossible angles, movements that are too fluid or too jerky. They hunt in packs, using coordinated tactics to corner their prey. The sound of their claws clicking on hard floors or their breathing in nearby corridors is often the only warning you get. Hounds are attracted to noise and movement, so survivors learn to move quietly and hide when they hear the telltale sounds of a pack nearby. Skin stealers are among the most disturbing entities in the Backrooms. These creatures can perfectly mimic human appearance, wearing the skin of their victims like a suit. They infiltrate survivor groups, pretending to be fellow wanderers, waiting for the right moment to strike. The only way to identify a skin stealer is through subtle wrongness. Movements that are slightly off, responses that don't quite make sense, or the occasional slip where the skin doesn't quite fit right. The paranoia they create is almost as dangerous as the creatures themselves, as survivor groups tear themselves apart with suspicion. The partygoers of Level Fun are a unique type of entity. These creatures appear as humanoid figures with permanent smiles, often wearing party hats or other festive attire. They inhabit Level Fun, sometimes called Level, and are obsessed with throwing parties and making people have fun. This sounds benign until you understand that their parties involve forcibly transforming victims into more partygoers through a process that is both physically and psychologically horrifying. They're intelligent, capable of speech, and disturbingly enthusiastic about their mission to make everyone join the party. Facelings are humanoid entities with no facial features. Smooth, blank skin where a face should be. They're found on multiple levels and their behavior varies. Some facelings are passive, simply standing or wandering aimlessly. Others are aggressive, attacking on sight. Still others seem almost curious, following survivors at a distance without attacking. The unpredictability makes them particularly unnerving. You never know if the faceling you've encountered is harmless or deadly until it's potentially too late. The bacteria, also known as the flesh, is less an entity and more a spreading infection. It appears as organic matter, flesh, muscle, organs, growing on walls, floors, and ceilings. The bacteria is alive and growing, slowly consuming whatever level it infests. Worse, it's infectious. Physical contact can lead to infection, with the victim slowly transforming into more bacteria. Entire levels have been lost to this entity, becoming writhing masses of flesh that were once rooms and hallways and people. Dullers are entities that appear as normal humans, but drain the life and energy from those around them. Being near a duller makes you tired, depressed, and apathetic. Extended exposure can lead to complete psychological collapse, with victims losing the will to live and simply lying down to die. Dullers are often found in groups, creating zones of overwhelming despair that are nearly impossible to pass through without succumbing. The Watchers are entities that exist in mirrors, reflective surfaces, and sometimes just in your peripheral vision. They appear as dark humanoid silhouettes that observe but rarely interact directly. However, their presence is corrosive to sanity. The more you see them, the more paranoid and unstable you become. Some survivors report that the Watchers can pull people into reflective surfaces, trapping them in a mirror dimension from which there is no escape. Clumps are bizarre entities that appear as masses of human limbs, arms, legs, hands, feet, all tangled together and moving as one organism. They're found in various levels, often in corners or crawl spaces. Clumps are generally not aggressive unless provoked, but their appearance is so disturbing that many survivors attack them on sight, which often proves to be a fatal mistake, as clumps are surprisingly strong and resilient. The Game Master is a unique entity associated with level 3999 and other game-themed levels. This entity appears as a tall, thin figure in a suit with a television for a head displaying various images and patterns. The Game Master forces victims to play deadly games, with failure resulting in death or transformation into another entity. It's intelligent, sadistic, and seems to derive pleasure from the suffering of its victims. Death moths are exactly what they sound like. Enormous moths, the size of humans or larger, that inhabit various levels. They're attracted to light sources, which makes them particularly dangerous in levels where light is necessary for survival. Death moths are venomous, and their scales can cause hallucinations and respiratory problems. They're also surprisingly fast and agile, making them difficult to escape once they've noticed you. The Neighborhood Watch is a collective entity found in suburban-themed levels. They appear as normal humans, often middle-aged and dressed in casual clothing, but they're obsessed with maintaining the rules of their neighborhood. Violating these rules, walking on the grass, making noise after dark, not maintaining your property, results in increasingly severe punishments. The Neighborhood Watch can appear anywhere in their territory instantly, making them nearly impossible to evade. Revuks are entities that appear as normal objects, furniture, decorations, supplies, but are actually alive and predatory. They wait for victims to interact with them, then attack. A chair might suddenly sprout teeth and bite. A door handle might grab your hand and not let go. A bottle of water might be a Revyuk that poisons you when you drink. The paranoia they create makes every object in the Backrooms potentially deadly. The storyteller is a mysterious entity that appears as an old man or woman sitting in a chair and telling stories. The stories are compelling, drawing listeners in, but they're also dangerous. Those who listen too long find themselves becoming part of the story, literally pulled into the narrative and trapped there. The storyteller is found in library-themed levels and other quiet spaces, and their voice can be heard from surprising distances. Entity 666, also known as the Beast, is one of the most dangerous entities in the Backrooms. It's described as a massive, vaguely humanoid creature with multiple limbs, covered in eyes and mouths. The Beast is intelligent, powerful, and seemingly unkillable. It hunts across multiple levels, and its presence is heralded by a feeling of overwhelming dread. Survivors who have encountered the Beast and lived are rare, and most are left permanently traumatized. The Howlers are entities that exist primarily as sound. They're invisible, or nearly so, but their howls and screams can be heard echoing through various levels. The sound itself is dangerous. Prolonged exposure causes bleeding from the ears, disorientation, and eventually death. Howlers seem to be attracted to other sounds, so making noise in their territory is extremely dangerous. Transporters are entities that can forcibly move victims between levels. They appear as swirling vortexes or portals, sometimes with tendrils or appendages that grab nearby wanderers. Being caught by a transporter means being thrown into a random level, often one far more dangerous than where you started. Some theories suggest transporters are actually a defense mechanism of the Backrooms itself, redistributing wanderers to maintain some kind of balance. The mangled are former humans who have been transformed by prolonged exposure to the Backrooms. They're twisted, broken versions of people, with limbs bent at wrong angles, skin stretched or torn, and minds completely gone. The mangled are aggressive and attack on sight, but they're also pitiable. They were once survivors like anyone else, driven mad and transformed by this place. Some wanderers refuse to kill the mangled, seeing them as victims rather than monsters. Others show no such mercy. Jerry is a unique entity that has become something of a mascot in Backrooms lore. Jerry appears as a friendly, cartoonish creature, often described as resembling a mascot costume or a children's TV character. Unlike most entities, Jerry is genuinely helpful, offering advice, supplies, and even companionship to lonely wanderers. However, Jerry's help always comes with a price, and that price is never clear until it's too late. Some survivors swear by Jerry's assistance. Others warn that accepting help from Jerry is a deal with the devil. The entities, yes, spelled that way in the lore, are a classification of creatures that don't fit into other categories. They're the miscellaneous monsters, the one-off encounters, the things that are seen once and never again. The Backrooms is infinite, and so are the possible entities that inhabit it. Every shadow could be something new. Every sound could be a creature never before documented. This uncertainty is part of what makes the Backrooms so terrifying. You can never be fully prepared because you can never know everything that's out there. While level 0 through level 10 or so are relatively well documented and understood, the deeper levels of the Backrooms become increasingly strange, dangerous, and reality-breaking. These levels abandon any pretense of following normal physical laws, becoming surreal nightmares that challenge the very concept of existence. Level 6, Lights Out, is one of the first truly dangerous levels most wanderers encounter. It's completely dark. No light sources work here, not flashlights, not lighters, not even the glow of electronic devices. The darkness is absolute and seems to actively resist illumination. Entities are common in level 6, and without light, avoiding them is nearly impossible. Survivors who have escaped level 6 describe navigating by touch, moving slowly and quietly, and praying they don't bump into something that bumps back. Level 9, The Suburbs, presents a different kind of horror. It appears as an endless suburban neighborhood, with houses, lawns, streets, and sidewalks stretching to the horizon. It's always twilight here, with the sun perpetually setting, but never quite disappearing. The houses are empty but furnished, as if the residents just stepped out and will be back any moment. But they never come back. The suburbs are disorienting because they look so normal, so safe, but the wrongness is palpable. The streets loop back on themselves. The houses are all slightly different, but also somehow the same. And the neighborhood watch entities patrol constantly, enforcing rules that make no sense. Level 11, The Infinite City, is a massive urban environment. Skyscrapers, streets, subways, parks, all abandoned and stretching infinitely in all directions. The city is in a state of decay, with buildings crumbling and nature slowly reclaiming the streets. It's one of the larger levels, and survivor communities have established bases here, taking advantage of the abundant resources and shelter. However, the city is also home to numerous entities, and getting lost in its endless streets is easy. Level 13 is considered extremely unlucky, and for good reason. It's a shifting, unstable level where the environment constantly changes. Rooms rearrange themselves, hallways appear and disappear, and the laws of physics are suggestions at best. Gravity might reverse, time might flow backwards, or you might find yourself walking on the ceiling. Level 13 is nearly impossible to map or navigate, and most who enter never find their way out. Level 37, The Pool Rooms, has become one of the most visually iconic levels after level 0. It consists of endless indoor swimming pools, locker rooms, and tiled corridors. The water is unnaturally still and clear, and the lighting is dim and atmospheric. The pool rooms are relatively safe. Few entities inhabit them, and the water is drinkable. However, the level is disorienting, with identical pools and corridors making navigation difficult. There's also something deeply unsettling about the stillness of the water and the echo of your footsteps on wet tile. Level 48. The Workplace is a massive office building. Cubicles, conference rooms, break rooms, and offices stretching infinitely. It's always Monday morning here, with the fluorescent lights bright and the air conditioning humming. The level is populated by facelings dressed in business attire, sitting at desks and typing on computers that display only gibberish. They ignore wanderers unless provoked, but their presence is deeply unsettling. The Workplace is a commentary on modern work culture, a liminal space made literal. Level 52, the school halls, is an endless school. Classrooms, hallways, cafeterias, gymnasiums, and playgrounds. It's always 3 p.m., right after school lets out. But there are no students or teachers. The level is filled with the echoes of children's voices, laughter, and shouting that seems to come from just around the corner, but is never actually there. The school halls are relatively safe during the day, but when night falls, which happens unpredictably, the level becomes extremely dangerous, with entities emerging from classrooms and lockers. Level 94, Motion, is a level that never stops moving. Everything, walls, floors, ceilings, objects, is in constant motion, sliding, rotating, or shifting. Staying still is impossible. You're constantly being moved by the environment. The motion is nauseating and disorienting, and many wanderers who enter level 94 become violently ill. The level is also home to entities that have adapted to the constant movement, making them difficult to track or avoid. Level 188, the Windows, is a level consisting entirely of windows. Floor-to-ceiling windows in all directions, showing impossible vistas. Other levels, places that don't exist. Memories from your past. Possible futures. The windows are solid and can't be broken, but looking through them for too long can drive you mad. Some windows show your loved ones, calling for you to come home. Others show your worst fears made real. The Windows is a psychological torture chamber disguised as a gallery. Level 283. The Junkyard is exactly what it sounds like. An infinite junkyard filled with debris, trash, and discarded objects from countless realities. The level is a maze of piled garbage, rusted metal, and broken machinery. It's dangerous to navigate, with unstable piles that can collapse and bury you. However, the junkyard is also a treasure trove for survivors, as almost anything can be found here if you're willing to search long enough. Weapons, tools, supplies, even working technology. It's all here, somewhere in the infinite trash. Level 399, the Neon Halls, is a level that looks like a 1980s arcade or mall. Bright neon lights, geometric patterns, and a constant soundtrack of synthwave music. The level is visually striking, but deeply unsettling, as the bright colors and upbeat music contrast sharply with the emptiness and danger. Entities in level 399 are often themed around 80s pop culture. Arcade machines that come to life, mannequins in dated clothing that move when you're not looking, and the ever-present feeling that you're being watched by something behind the neon glow. Level 666. The Inferno is one of the most dangerous levels in the Backrooms. It's a hellscape of fire, lava, and burning structures. The heat is intense enough to kill within minutes without proper protection. The level is home to some of the most aggressive and powerful entities, and there are no known survivor communities here. Those who enter level 666 usually do so by accident, and escape is rare. The level seems to be actively malevolent, with the environment itself trying to kill you. Level 777, the Casino, is a massive gambling hall. Slot machines, card tables, roulette wheels, and more, all in a glitzy, over-the-top environment. The casino is run by entities that appear as dealers and staff, and they're always eager for new players. The games are rigged, of course, but winning is possible. The prizes can be incredible. Supplies, weapons, even exits to other levels. But losing means becoming part of the casino, transformed into another dealer or machine, forced to lure in new players for eternity. Level 906, the Carnival, is an abandoned amusement park. Rides, games, food stalls, and attractions all frozen in time. The level is always twilight, with the rides occasionally creaking to life on their own. The Carnival is home to the partygoers and other festive entities, making it extremely dangerous. However, it's also strangely beautiful, with a melancholic atmosphere that some wanderers find compelling despite the danger. Level 1000, the Void, is a level of pure nothingness. It's an infinite expanse of darkness, with no floor, no ceiling, no walls. You float in the void, unable to move or orient yourself. There's no sound, no light, no sensation, except the awareness of your own existence. The void is considered a death sentence. Those who enter rarely escape, and those who do are often driven completely insane by the experience. Level 3999, The Game Show, is a reality-warping level where victims are forced to participate in deadly game shows hosted by the Game Master entity. The games are varied: trivia, physical challenges, puzzles, but failure always results in death or transformation. The level is designed like a TV studio, with cameras, lights, and an invisible audience whose laughter and applause echo through the space. Winning is possible, and the prizes can include escape, but the games are designed to be nearly impossible. The negative levels, level -1, level -2, and so on, are accessed by going down instead of up, descending into the depths of the backrooms. These levels are generally more dangerous and more alien than the positive levels. Level -1, the basement, is a dark, damp, underground space filled with pipes, machinery, and the sound of dripping water. Level -2, the sewers, is self-explanatory and home to aquatic entities. The deeper you go into the negative levels, the more reality breaks down, until you reach levels that can barely be described in human terms. Secret levels are those that can only be accessed under specific conditions or from specific locations. Level 1, Run for Your Life, is a maze of colorful, party-themed rooms inhabited by the partygoers. It's accessed by following balloons or party decorations in other levels. Level 6.1, Snack Rooms, is a level filled with food and drinks, but consuming anything here has unpredictable effects. Level 9.1, The Suburbs at Night, is a nighttime version of Level 9, where the neighborhood watch is far more aggressive. The deepest levels, those numbered in the thousands or tens of thousands, are barely documented because so few have reached them and returned. These levels are said to be where the backrooms becomes truly alien, where human concepts like space, time, and causality no longer apply. Some theories suggest that the deepest levels are where the backrooms originated or where it's trying to go, a final destination or ultimate purpose that remains unknown. The backrooms presents a unique challenge to human understanding. It's a place that shouldn't exist, that violates every known law of physics and reality. Yet within the lore, various organizations and individuals have attempted to study and understand this impossible space. The theories they've developed range from scientific to metaphysical to outright bizarre. The most common theory is that the backrooms is a parallel dimension or alternate reality. According to this view, our universe is just one of many, and the backrooms exists alongside it, separated by a thin barrier that can occasionally be breached. The no-clipping phenomenon is when this barrier fails, allowing people to slip through into the backrooms. This theory is supported by the fact that the backrooms seems to have its own consistent, if strange, physical laws, suggesting it's a complete reality rather than just a pocket or anomaly. Another popular theory is that the backrooms is a simulation or digital space. This view holds that our reality is itself a simulation, and the backrooms is what lies behind the scenes, the unused assets, the debug rooms, the spaces that exist in the code but aren't meant to be accessed by users. The prevalence of liminal spaces in the backrooms supports this theory, as these are exactly the kinds of transitional areas that might exist in a simulated reality but not be fully rendered or populated. The collective unconscious theory suggests that the backrooms is a manifestation of human psychology, a shared dream space or mental realm where our collective fears and memories take physical form. The liminal spaces are familiar because they're drawn from our shared experiences. The entities are our fears made manifest. The endless nature of the backrooms reflects the infinite depths of the human mind. This theory explains why the backrooms feel so familiar yet so wrong. It's made from our own memories and anxieties. Some researchers within the lore propose that the backrooms is a living entity itself, a vast organism or intelligence that creates these spaces for its own purposes. Perhaps it feeds on the fear and suffering of those trapped within it. Perhaps it's studying humanity, using the backrooms as a laboratory. Or perhaps it's simply alien, with motivations and goals that humans can't comprehend. The fact that the backrooms seems to respond to human presence, creating new levels, spawning entities, providing just enough resources to keep victims alive, suggests some kind of intelligence behind it. The decay theory posits that the backrooms is what's left of a dead or dying reality. The liminal spaces are the remnants of a world that once existed but has been abandoned or destroyed. The entities are the last inhabitants, twisted and changed by whatever catastrophe befell their world. The endless nature of the backrooms is because it's all that's left, an infinite graveyard of empty spaces. This theory is particularly dark, as it suggests that our reality might one day suffer the same fate. The multiverse junction theory suggests that the backrooms is a nexus point where multiple realities intersect. The different levels are actually different universes or dimensions, and the backrooms is the space between them. This explains the vast variety of environments and the reality-warping properties of deeper levels. You're not just moving through space, but between entire realities. The entities might be beings from these other realities, as trapped as human wanderers. Some theorists propose that the backrooms is a prison or containment facility created by some higher power to trap dangerous entities or individuals. Humans who no-clip into the backrooms are accidental prisoners, caught in a system not designed for them. This theory is supported by the organized nature of the levels and the presence of what seem like security measures, entities that patrol and eliminate intruders, levels that seem designed to contain rather than kill. The time loop theory suggests that the backrooms exists outside of normal time, or in a time loop. The same moments repeat endlessly, which is why the spaces feel frozen and unchanging. Wanderers aren't moving through space so much as through time, experiencing the same locations at different points in an infinite cycle. This explains why supplies sometimes appear. They're from previous iterations of the loop. It also explains the feeling of déjà vu many wanderers report. The psychological projection theory holds that the backrooms is different for everyone, that each person experiences their own personal version based on their fears and memories. The reason the lore is so consistent is because humans share common fears and experiences, but in reality, no two people experience exactly the same backrooms. This theory is difficult to prove or disprove, as it's impossible to directly compare experiences. The MEG has developed a classification system for understanding the backrooms, treating it as a scientific phenomenon to be studied and cataloged. They've mapped hundreds of levels, documented thousands of entities, and established protocols for survival and exploration. Their approach is pragmatic. Understanding the backrooms may be impossible, but surviving it is not. They focus on practical knowledge, which levels are safe, which entities are dangerous, how to find food and water, how to navigate between levels. The Async Research Institute, in some versions of the lore, is a pre-backrooms organization that may have discovered or even created the backrooms through scientific experimentation. Their research into parallel dimensions or reality manipulation may have accidentally opened the door to this space, or worse, created it entirely. The ruins of async facilities can be found in some levels, containing research notes and equipment that hint at the truth behind the backrooms' origin. Religious and spiritual interpretations of the backrooms also exist within the lore. Some see it as a form of purgatory or hell, a place of punishment or testing. Others view it as a spiritual realm, where the physical and metaphysical overlap. There are reports of wanderers finding religious symbols or structures in various levels: churches, temples, shrines. Though whether these offer any real protection or salvation is unclear. The reality virus theory is one of the more disturbing explanations. It suggests that the backrooms is a kind of infection or corruption that spreads through reality itself. Once a space becomes infected, it transforms into part of the backrooms. The no-clipping phenomenon is when a person comes into contact with an infected area and is pulled in. This theory implies that the backrooms is growing, consuming more and more of our reality, and that eventually everything might become part of it. Some researchers have noted patterns in the backrooms that suggest mathematical or geometric principles at work. The way levels connect, the frequency of certain types of spaces, the distribution of entities, all of it seems to follow rules. even if those rules are alien to human understanding. This has led to attempts to create mathematical models of the backrooms, to predict which levels connect to which, or where entities are likely to appear. Success has been limited, but the fact that patterns exist at all suggests underlying order. The question of why liminal spaces specifically is addressed by several theories. One suggests that liminal spaces are easier to access because they're already transitional. They exist between states, making them natural weak points in reality. Another proposes that liminal spaces are where the backrooms leaks through into our world. That the feeling of unease we get in empty hallways or parking garages is actually our subconscious detecting the presence of the backrooms nearby. The role of human consciousness in the backrooms is another area of speculation. Some theories suggest that the backrooms requires human observation to exist, that it's sustained by the awareness of those trapped within it. This would explain why it seems to respond to human presence, and why it provides just enough resources to keep people alive. It needs them. Other theories suggest the opposite, that human consciousness is what's keeping the backrooms contained, and if everyone escaped or died, it would expand uncontrollably. The existence of objects from our reality within the backrooms, vending machines, furniture, supplies, raises questions about how they got there. Are they pulled in the same way people are? Are they created by the backrooms itself, copies of real objects? Or are they remnants of whatever existed before the backrooms became what it is? The fact that these objects often don't work properly or have strange properties suggests they're not quite real, but not quite fake either. The ultimate question, can you escape the backrooms, has no definitive answer. Some levels have exits that lead back to reality, though finding them is rare and often requires specific conditions. Some wanderers report simply waking up back in the real world with no memory of how they escaped. Others speak of the end, a theoretical final level that serves as an exit, though no one has confirmed its existence. The MEG and other organizations continue to search for reliable escape methods, but for most, the backrooms is a life sentence. For those who don't immediately die or go insane, the backrooms becomes a new reality to adapt to. Over time, a culture of survival has emerged among wanderers, with its own rules, traditions, and social structures. Understanding this culture is essential to understanding the human element of the backrooms lore. The first rule of survival in the backrooms is simple. Keep moving. Staying in one place too long is dangerous. Entities patrol, resources deplete, and the psychological toll of stagnation can be devastating. Wanderers learn to be constantly on the move, searching for safer levels, better resources, or other survivors. This nomadic lifestyle is exhausting, but it's necessary. The second rule is trust no one, but also, you can't survive alone. This paradox defines social interactions in the backrooms. Other wanderers might be your salvation, allies who can watch your back, share resources, and provide companionship in this lonely hell. But they might also be skin stealers, hostile survivors who will kill you for your supplies, or simply unstable individuals who are more dangerous than helpful. Learning to read people, to identify threats, and to form tentative alliances is a crucial survival skill. Survivor communities have formed in safer levels, creating pockets of relative civilization in the chaos. These communities range from small groups of a dozen people to large settlements of hundreds. They establish bases, often in easily defensible locations with access to resources. They create rules and social structures, assign roles and responsibilities, and work together to survive. The largest and most organized is the MEG, but there are many others. The MEG, Major Explorer Group, functions as a quasi-government and research organization. They maintain bases in multiple levels, conduct expeditions to map new areas, document entities and phenomena, and provide aid to wanderers. They've established a ranking system with new recruits starting as explorers and advancing through various levels of responsibility. The MEG also maintains archives of knowledge about the backrooms, making them the primary source of information for survivors. The BNTG, Backrooms Non-Aligned Trade Group, focuses on commerce and resource distribution. They establish trade routes between levels, barter goods and services, and maintain a neutral stance in conflicts between other groups. The BNTG is essential for the survival of many communities, as they facilitate the movement of resources from levels where they're abundant to levels where they're scarce. The lost are wanderers who have given up hope of escape and have instead embraced life in the backrooms. They've adapted completely, learning to navigate the levels with ease, avoid entities instinctively, and find resources where others see only emptiness. The lost are often solitary, but they sometimes serve as guides for newer wanderers, sharing their knowledge in exchange for supplies or companionship. The cult of the backrooms is a religious group that worships the backrooms itself as a deity or higher power. They believe that being trapped here is not a curse, but a blessing, that the backrooms has chosen them for some greater purpose. The cult is generally peaceful, but can be dangerous if they believe you're disrespecting their god. They've established temples in various levels and conduct rituals that they claim can influence the backrooms or provide protection. The Resistance is a militant group dedicated to fighting back against the backrooms and its entities. They believe that the backrooms can be destroyed, or at least damaged, and they conduct raids against entity strongholds, sabotage what they perceive as the backrooms infrastructure, and search for weapons or methods to fight back. The Resistance is controversial. Many see them as heroes, while others view them as reckless fools who only make things more dangerous. Resource management is a constant concern in the backrooms. Food and water are scarce in most levels, and what you find is often questionable. Almond water is the most reliable source of hydration and nutrition, but it's not always available. Wanderers learn to ration carefully, to identify which foods are safe and which are dangerous, and to take advantage of resource-rich levels when they find them. Crafting and improvisation are essential skills. Wanderers learn to make weapons from scavenged materials, create tools for navigation and survival, and fashion protective gear from whatever they can find. The junkyard levels are particularly valuable for this, as they contain materials from countless realities. A skilled crafter can create almost anything given enough time and resources. Navigation in the backrooms is an art form. Without reliable maps, as levels can shift or change, wanderers rely on landmarks, patterns, and intuition. Some develop a sixth sense for navigation, able to find exits or safe areas through means they can't quite explain. Others use more practical methods, marking walls, creating maps of local areas, or following the paths of other wanderers. Communication between levels is difficult, but not impossible. Some levels have working phones or radios that can connect to other levels. The MEG maintains a network of communication stations, allowing messages to be passed between their bases. Written messages are also common. Notes left in high-traffic areas, warnings about dangers, or pleas for help. The Backrooms has its own form of graffiti, with symbols and messages covering walls in many levels. Mental health is perhaps the greatest challenge in the Backrooms. The isolation, the constant danger, the hopelessness of the situation, all of it takes a severe psychological toll. Wanderers develop coping mechanisms, talking to themselves, creating routines, holding on to memories of home, or finding purpose in helping others. Communities often have designated counselors or support groups, recognizing that mental health is as important as physical health for survival. The concept of time becomes fluid in the backrooms. Without day and night cycles in most levels, and with the disorienting effects of some levels, keeping track of time is nearly impossible. Wanderers often lose track of how long they've been trapped. Days blur into weeks, weeks into months or years. Some communities maintain calendars and clocks, trying to impose order on the timeless chaos. But for many, time becomes meaningless. Relationships in the backrooms are intense and complicated. The shared trauma and constant danger create strong bonds between survivors. Friendships form quickly, as do romances. But the stress and danger also lead to conflicts, betrayals, and violence. Communities struggle with issues of leadership, resource distribution, and justice. Some establish formal legal systems, others rely on informal social pressure or the threat of exile. Children born in the backrooms are a rare but documented phenomenon. These children have never known the real world, and the backrooms is their normal. They adapt in ways adults can't, developing instincts and abilities that seem almost supernatural. However, raising children in such a dangerous environment is controversial, with some arguing it's cruel to bring new life into this hell, while others see it as an act of hope and defiance. The concept of home changes in the backrooms. For new wanderers, home is the real world they have lost. But for long-term survivors, home becomes their base, their community, their corner of whatever level they've settled in. Some wanderers create elaborate living spaces, decorating and personalizing them, trying to create normalcy in the abnormal. Others remain nomadic, carrying everything they own and never staying in one place long enough to call it home. Entertainment and leisure might seem impossible in the backrooms, but humans are adaptable. Wanderers tell stories, play games with improvised pieces, create art on walls or with scavenged materials, and even organize events like sports or performances. These activities are essential for maintaining sanity and morale. Some levels, like the casino or the carnival, offer entertainment, though always at a price. The economy of the backrooms is based on barter and trade. Almond water is the closest thing to a universal currency. But other valuable items include weapons, tools, information, and services. The BNTG facilitates most large-scale trade, but informal exchanges happen constantly. Trust is the real currency. A reputation for honesty and reliability is worth more than any physical goods. Death in the backrooms is common, and communities have developed rituals and practices for dealing with it. Some hold funerals, trying to maintain human dignity even in this inhuman place. Others are more pragmatic, viewing death as simply part of life here. The question of what happens to the dead is unsettling. Bodies sometimes disappear, and there are reports of the dead returning as entities or being absorbed by the backrooms itself. Hope is the most valuable resource in the backrooms and the hardest to maintain. Every wanderer clings to something, the hope of escape, of finding loved ones, of discovering the truth, or simply of surviving another day. Communities work to maintain hope, celebrating small victories, sharing stories of successful escapes, real or rumored, and supporting each other through the darkest times. When hope dies, the person usually follows soon after. The backrooms began as text and images, but it has expanded into virtually every form of media. This multimedia approach has allowed the mythology to reach wider audiences and explore the concept in new ways. YouTube has become a major platform for backrooms content. Kane Pixels, a teenage creator, produced a series of found footage-style videos exploring the backrooms that went viral in 2022. His videos introduced cinematic quality to the concept, with impressive CGI, sound design, and storytelling. Kane's version of the backrooms includes the Async Research Institute and presents a more narrative-driven approach to the lore. His success inspired countless other creators to produce their own backrooms videos. The found footage format is particularly effective for backrooms content. The shaky camera, the first-person perspective, the sense of real-time exploration, all of it enhances the horror and immersion. Viewers feel like they're experiencing the backrooms alongside the protagonist, making every entity encounter and every wrong turn viscerally frightening. The format also allows for ambiguity and mystery, with questions left unanswered and fates left uncertain. Video games based on the backrooms have proliferated. From simple indie horror games to more complex survival experiences, developers have explored what it means to actually navigate and survive in the backrooms. Games allow for interactivity that other media can't provide. The player makes choices, faces consequences, and experiences the backrooms in a personal way. Some games focus on horror and atmosphere, while others emphasize exploration and survival mechanics. The most successful backrooms games capture the feeling of the original concept, the loneliness, the disorientation, the creeping dread. They use procedural generation to create endless maze-like levels. They implement entity AI that creates genuine tension and fear. And they understand that sometimes the scariest thing is nothing happening, just walking through empty rooms, waiting for something to go wrong. Podcasts and audio dramas have also explored the backrooms. The audio-only format is perfect for horror, as it forces listeners to imagine the visuals, often creating something more frightening than any image could be. Audio dramas can explore the psychological aspects of the backrooms, using voice acting, sound effects, and music to create immersive experiences. Some present themselves as recordings from within the backrooms, adding to the found footage aesthetic. Music inspired by the backrooms has emerged, particularly in the ambient and dark ambient genres. These compositions capture the atmosphere of the backrooms, the hum of fluorescent lights, the echo of empty spaces, the sense of vast, uncaring emptiness. Some musicians create soundscapes for specific levels, while others compose more general backrooms-themed pieces. This music is often used in videos and games, becoming part of the broader backrooms aesthetic. Art, both digital and traditional, has been a major part of the backrooms community from the beginning. Artists create depictions of levels, entities, and scenes from the lore. The liminal aesthetic has become a distinct art style with its own techniques and conventions. Some artists focus on photorealism, creating images that look like actual photographs from the backrooms. Others take more stylized or abstract approaches, exploring the emotional and psychological aspects of the concept. The liminal space photography movement has grown alongside the backrooms, with photographers seeking out and capturing real-world locations that evoke the same feelings. Empty malls, abandoned hotels, deserted office buildings. These spaces are documented and shared, often with the implication that they're connected to the backrooms or could serve as entry points. This blurring of fiction and reality adds another layer to the mythology. Role-playing communities have formed around the backrooms, with participants creating characters and stories set in this universe. Some role-play as wanderers trying to survive, others as members of organizations like the MEG, and still others as entities or other non-human beings. These role-playing communities contribute to the lore, creating new stories and expanding the mythology in collaborative ways. Merchandise has become increasingly common as the backrooms has grown in popularity. T-shirts, posters, stickers, and other items featuring backrooms imagery are widely available. Some feature the iconic yellow rooms of Level 0. Others depict entities or symbols from the lore. This commercialization is controversial in some parts of the community, with purists arguing it dilutes the horror, while others see it as a natural evolution of a popular concept. Academic interest in the backrooms has begun to emerge. Scholars of internet culture, folklore, and horror have started analyzing the phenomenon, exploring what it says about modern anxieties, the nature of collaborative storytelling, and the evolution of horror in the digital age. The backrooms is being studied as an example of how myths are created and spread in the internet era. The backrooms has influenced other media and creators. Elements of the concept have appeared in mainstream horror, video games, and other creative works. The liminal space aesthetic has become widely recognized, even outside of backroom-specific contexts. The idea of infinite, maze-like spaces filled with monsters has been explored in various forms, often with clear inspiration from the backrooms. Documentaries and video essays about the backrooms have been produced, explaining the lore, analyzing its appeal, and exploring its cultural impact. These meta-analyses help newcomers understand the concept and provide longtime fans with new perspectives. They also serve to legitimize the backrooms as a significant cultural phenomenon worthy of serious discussion. The international spread of the backrooms has led to versions in multiple languages and cultural contexts. Japanese, Spanish, Russian, and other language communities have created their own backrooms content, sometimes adding cultural-specific elements or interpretations. This global expansion has enriched the mythology, introducing new perspectives and ideas. Virtual reality experiences of the backrooms have been developed, offering the most immersive way to experience the concept yet. VR allows users to actually walk through the yellow halls, to look around in 360 degrees, to feel the scale and emptiness of the space. The sense of presence VR provides makes the backrooms even more unsettling, as the line between fiction and experience blurs. Beyond the horror and the lore, the backrooms resonates because it taps into deep philosophical and psychological themes. Understanding what the backrooms represents helps explain its enduring appeal and cultural significance. The Backrooms is fundamentally about liminality, the state of being in between. Liminal spaces are transitional, places we pass through but don't inhabit. They're uncomfortable because they violate our expectations. A hallway should lead somewhere. An empty parking garage should have cars. A hotel corridor should have guests. When these spaces are empty and endless, they become uncanny, familiar, yet wrong. The Backrooms takes this feeling and makes it literal, creating a reality that is nothing but transition, nothing but in between. This speaks to modern anxieties about purpose and meaning. In a world where many feel like they're just going through the motions, where life feels like an endless series of transitions without destinations, the Backrooms is a perfect metaphor. It's the fear that life itself is just a series of empty hallways, that there's no real destination, just endless wandering through spaces that all look the same. The Backrooms also represents isolation in the digital age. Despite being more connected than ever through technology, many people feel profoundly alone. The Backrooms literalizes this. You're in a space that should be populated but isn't, where you can walk forever and never find another person. The rare encounters with other wanderers mirror the shallow, brief connections of social media, moments of contact in an ocean of loneliness. The concept of no-clipping, glitching out of reality, resonates with a generation that has grown up with video games and digital technology. It frames existence itself as a kind of simulation or game, where bugs and glitches can occur. This reflects a broader cultural anxiety about the nature of reality, questions about whether we live in a simulation, and the feeling that something about modern existence is fundamentally wrong or artificial. The endless nature of the Backrooms speaks to fears of meaninglessness and infinity. The human mind struggles with the concept of infinity. It's too vast, too incomprehensible. The Backrooms makes infinity tangible and terrifying. You could walk forever and never reach an end. You could explore for lifetimes and never see everything. This infinite scale makes the individual feel insignificant, powerless, lost in a cosmos that doesn't care about their existence. The entities of the Backrooms represent the unknown and the unknowable. They're threats that can't be fully understood or predicted. This mirrors real-world anxieties about dangers we can't control or comprehend: disease, violence, death. The entities are also often described as former humans, transformed by the Backrooms, which adds another layer of horror: the fear of losing your humanity, of becoming something other than yourself. The survival communities in the Backrooms represent humanity's resilience and need for connection. Even in the worst circumstances, people band together, create societies, find meaning. This is hopeful in a way. It suggests that human nature includes cooperation and compassion, not just competition and cruelty. But it's also tragic, as these communities are ultimately futile, temporary lights in an infinite darkness. The Backrooms can be read as a metaphor for mental illness, particularly dissociation and depression. The feeling of being disconnected from reality, of existing in a space that feels wrong and empty, of being unable to find your way back to normalcy. These are experiences familiar to those struggling with mental health issues. The endless yellow rooms could represent the monotony of depression, the feeling that every day is the same, that there's no escape from the emptiness. The concept also touches on existential philosophy. The Backrooms is an absurd universe. It has no purpose, no meaning, no justice. Things happen randomly. Survival is often a matter of luck rather than skill or virtue. This mirrors existentialist views of our own universe as fundamentally meaningless, with meaning only created by individuals through their choices and actions. The wanderers who maintain hope and humanity in the Backrooms are engaging in an existential act of defiance. The Backrooms represents the fear of being forgotten. In the infinite empty spaces, you could die and no one would ever know. Your body would lie in some random room in some random level, and the universe would continue unchanged. This taps into a deep human fear that our lives don't matter, that we'll be forgotten, that our existence is ultimately insignificant. The liminal aesthetic of the Backrooms also speaks to nostalgia and the passage of time. Many of the spaces depicted 80s malls, old office buildings, dated hotels are from the past, or at least feel like they are. They're spaces that once had purpose and life, but are now empty and abandoned. This evokes feelings about aging, obsolescence, and the inevitable march of time. The backrooms is where the past goes to die, where the spaces of our memories exist in eternal, empty stasis. The collaborative nature of the backrooms lore itself is philosophically interesting. It's a mythology created by thousands of people, with no single author or authority. This mirrors how real mythologies and religions developed, through collective storytelling and belief. The Backrooms is a modern myth created in real time through the internet, showing how digital technology has changed the way we create and share stories. The question of escape from the Backrooms parallels questions about escape from suffering, or existence itself. Can you get out? Should you try, or should you accept your situation and make the best of it? Is escape even desirable if it means leaving behind the community and purpose you found? These are questions humans have grappled with throughout history, now framed in the context of an infinite maze. The Backrooms also represents the fear of the mundane becoming monstrous. The spaces aren't alien or fantastical. They're office buildings, schools, suburbs. The horror comes from taking the everyday and making it wrong. This is more unsettling than traditional horror settings because it suggests that the familiar can't be trusted, that the normal world could at any moment become a nightmare. Finally, the Backrooms is about the human need for narrative and meaning. Even in this meaningless maze, wanderers create stories, form communities, establish purposes. The lore itself is an attempt to impose order on chaos, to understand the incomprehensible. This reflects a fundamental human trait. We are storytelling creatures, and we will create narratives even in the most hostile and senseless environments. The Backrooms has evolved dramatically since that first post in 2019, and it shows no signs of stopping. As the mythology continues to grow and spread, several trends and possibilities emerge for its future. The lore will continue to expand, with new levels, entities, and concepts being added constantly. The collaborative nature of the Backrooms means that anyone can contribute, and the mythology will grow in directions no single creator could predict. This expansion will likely lead to increasing complexity, with more interconnected storylines, deeper world building, and more elaborate explanations for the nature of the Backrooms. However, this expansion also risks dilution. As more people contribute, maintaining consistency and quality becomes challenging. Different wikis and communities already have different canons, and this fragmentation may increase. Some fans prefer the original, simple concept, while others embrace the elaborate mythology. This tension between simplicity and complexity will likely continue to shape the community. Mainstream media attention is increasing. The success of Kane Pixel's videos and the growing popularity of Backrooms content suggest that larger media companies may take interest. We could see official Backrooms movies, TV shows, or major video game releases. This mainstream adoption would bring the concept to wider audiences, but might also change it in ways that alienate original fans. The aesthetic influence of the Backrooms will likely continue to spread. Liminal space photography and art have become popular beyond the Backrooms community. This aesthetic, empty transitional spaces with an unsettling atmosphere, has influenced music videos, advertising, and other media. The Backrooms has contributed to a broader cultural moment of appreciating and exploring these kinds of spaces. Academic study of the Backrooms will probably increase. As a significant example of internet folklore and collaborative storytelling, it offers rich material for scholars of digital culture, horror, and mythology. We may see books, papers, and courses examining the Backrooms and what it reveals about contemporary society and storytelling. The technology for experiencing the Backrooms will improve. Better VR, more sophisticated games, and new forms of interactive media will allow for increasingly immersive Backrooms experiences. Imagine a fully realized VR Backrooms where you can explore for hours, encounter other players, and experience the full scope of the mythology. This could be both exciting and potentially disturbing. The community will continue to evolve. New platforms and technologies will change how fans interact and create. The Backrooms has already spread across multiple platforms: wikis, Reddit, YouTube, TikTok, Discord, and will likely continue to adapt to new spaces. Each platform brings its own culture and style, influencing how the Backrooms is interpreted and shared. Commercialization will likely increase, for better or worse. More merchandise, official products, and monetized content will emerge. This could provide resources for creators to produce higher quality content, but it also risks turning the Backrooms into just another brand, losing the grassroots collaborative spirit that made it special. The Backrooms may inspire similar concepts. Just as the SCP Foundation inspired the Backrooms may inspire new collaborative horror mythologies. We might see other liminal or transitional spaces explored in similar ways, or entirely new concepts that use the same collaborative wiki-based approach to world building. The philosophical and psychological themes of the Backrooms will likely be explored more deeply. As the concept matures, creators may use it to examine more complex ideas about existence, consciousness, and reality. The Backrooms could evolve from pure horror into something more thoughtful and profound, while still maintaining its unsettling core. International versions will continue to develop, with different cultures adding their own interpretations and elements. This could lead to fascinating cross-cultural exchanges, with ideas and concepts flowing between different language communities. The Backrooms could become a truly global mythology, with contributions from around the world. The relationship between the Backrooms and real-world spaces will continue to be interesting. As more people become aware of the concept, real liminal spaces may be viewed differently. Abandoned buildings, empty malls, and other transitional spaces may be seen through the lens of the Backrooms, changing how we experience and interpret these places. The question of canon will become increasingly important and contentious. With multiple wikis, countless creators, and no central authority, what counts as official? Backrooms lore? Different communities will likely develop their own answers, leading to multiple distinct versions of the mythology coexisting. This plurality could be seen as a strength, allowing for diverse interpretations, or a weakness, creating confusion and fragmentation. The Backrooms may eventually fade from prominence, as internet trends do, but even if it does, its influence will likely persist. The concepts it popularized, liminal spaces, collaborative horror, the aesthetic of empty transitional areas, have become part of the broader cultural vocabulary. The Backrooms has changed how we think about space, horror, and storytelling. New media forms we can't yet predict will offer new ways to experience and contribute to the Backrooms. As technology evolves, so will the possibilities for immersive, interactive, and collaborative storytelling. The Backrooms is well positioned to take advantage of these new forms, as its core concept is flexible and adaptable. The community will face challenges in maintaining the quality and spirit of the original concept while allowing for growth and evolution. Gatekeeping versus inclusivity, simplicity versus complexity, horror versus hope, these tensions will shape the future of the Backrooms. How the community navigates these challenges will determine whether the Backrooms remains a vibrant, evolving mythology or becomes a diluted shadow of its original self. Ultimately, the future of the Backrooms is uncertain, which is perhaps fitting for a concept built on uncertainty and the unknown. It will continue to evolve, shaped by thousands of creators and millions of fans, growing in directions no one can fully predict. And that's part of what makes it fascinating. The Backrooms itself is infinite and unknowable, and so too is its future. The Backrooms has become one of the most significant horror concepts of the internet age. From a single image and brief description, it has grown into a vast, complex mythology that continues to captivate and terrify. Its appeal lies in its simplicity and its depth, its familiarity and its strangeness, its horror and its humanity. At its core, the Backrooms taps into primal fears, being lost, being alone, being trapped in an endless maze with no escape. But it does so using the language and imagery of modern life. The spaces are familiar: offices, schools, malls. But wrong. This makes the horror more immediate and relatable than traditional horror settings. We've all been in spaces like these, felt that liminal unease, experienced that moment of disorientation in an empty hallway or parking garage. The collaborative nature of the Backrooms is part of what makes it special. It's not the vision of a single creator, but the collective imagination of thousands. This gives it a richness and variety that no single author could achieve. It also makes it participatory. Anyone can contribute. Anyone can add to the mythology. This democratization of storytelling is characteristic of internet culture and represents a new way of creating and sharing myths. The Backrooms also succeeds because it leaves room for interpretation and imagination. Not everything is explained. The origin of the Backrooms, the nature of the entities, the possibility of escape, these are left ambiguous. This ambiguity allows each person to fill in the gaps with their own fears and ideas, making the experience personal and unique. The multimedia expansion of the Backrooms has allowed it to reach wider audiences and explore the concept in new ways. Videos, games, art, music, each medium brings something different to the mythology. This multimedia approach also ensures that the Backrooms remains relevant and accessible, adapting to new platforms and technologies as they emerge. The philosophical and psychological depth of the Backrooms gives it staying power beyond simple horror. It's not just about monsters and jump scares, it's about isolation, meaninglessness, the nature of reality, and the human condition. These themes resonate because they reflect real anxieties and questions about modern life. The Backrooms is horror, but it's also commentary, metaphor, and exploration of what it means to be human in an uncertain world. The Backrooms represents a new kind of folklore for the digital age. Traditional folklore emerged from oral traditions, passed down through generations, evolving with each telling. The Backrooms emerges from digital traditions, passed through forums and wikis, evolving with each contribution. It's a living mythology, growing and changing in real time, shaped by the collective consciousness of the internet. The aesthetic of the Backrooms.